Do you know about the murder that still haunts Denver after more than 30 years? A young man, just 23, walking home from a night out, then suddenly attacked by two strangers in the middle of Larimer Street. Witnesses saw a knife flash under a streetlight, a struggle, and then silence. By the time paramedics arrived, David Weierke had collapsed on the sidewalk, fighting for his last breath. Who were those two men? Why did the confrontation turn deadly? And why has this case remained unsolved for 3 decades? Tonight, we uncover the tragic final moments of a young man who moved to Denver for a new beginning and instead met a violent end. Please support the channel. Like, share, and subscribe to help keep these victims' memories alive. Growing up in Belle Plaine, Minnesota, David Weierke lived a childhood that looked like something out of an old family photo album, sun-bleached, loud, messy, and full of memories that only small-town kids truly understand. Belle Plaine wasn't a big place, but to David and the neighborhood kids, it felt like a giant playground. Every morning in the summertime, the Weierke children would rush out the door and disappear into a world made of dirt roads, wooded trails, and half-forgotten junkyards where adventure waited behind every rusted metal door. David didn't need video games or screens to keep him entertained. For him and his friends, imagination did all the work. One day, they were explorers uncovering ancient treasures hidden in old cars at the junkyard. The next day, they were professional baseball stars using makeshift bats and taped-up balls. His sister Margaret remembers those days vividly, how they ran through fields barefoot, how their mother would shout for them long after sunset, and how they would return home sweaty, scratched up, and smiling. "We didn't come home until the streetlights came on," Margaret recalled, a small laugh hidden somewhere behind the sorrow of memory. Those streetlights were their signal, their curfew, their reminder that the adventures would pause, but never truly end. David was raised by a single mother, Donna, who worked hard to give her 3 children a good life. Even though money was tight, Donna never let her children feel the weight of her struggles. She created warmth through laughter, comfort through tradition, and joy through the small things like movie nights. The Weierke family loved movies, but snacks were too expensive to buy at the theater. So Donna became a professional candy smuggler, hiding licorice, chocolates, and peanut butter cups in her purse. David's eyes would light up every time she pulled out the contraband snacks, especially his favorite licorice. He also had a deep love for sweets in general. Cake, pancakes, frosting. David didn't just enjoy dessert. He celebrated it. His mom still remembers the sight of him sitting at the table, drowning his pancakes in syrup until they practically floated. And when it came to birthday cake, the more frosting the better. His sweet tooth wasn't just a craving, it was part of his personality. David loved anything that brought joy, comfort, or reason to smile. He also loved animals, but not in the usual way most kids did. While other children asked for puppies or kittens, David begged his mother for a pet eagle. Donna, doing the best a mother could, came home one day with a bright blue eagle statue instead. David didn't mind. To him, it was perfect, symbolic, majestic, and uniquely his. He was also creative and thoughtful. One year, he made his mother a handmade clock. Not a school project, not something guided by a teacher, something he built with his own hands, sanding the wood, shaping the pieces, and piecing together the mechanism. "It still works to this day," Donna said softly, the pride in her voice mixed with a grief that never truly fades. Through every story his family tells, one theme stands out. David brought life and laughter into every room he walked into. He wasn't perfect, no young boy is, but he was full of potential, kindness, and a joy that stuck with people long after he left. He was a brother, a son, a creator, a dreamer, and nobody could have imagined how short his story would be. As David entered his late teenage years, life began shifting in ways he didn't fully understand. Like many young adults standing at the crossroads between childhood and responsibility, he struggled to figure out who he wanted to be. His mother, Donna, often said David had a good heart but sometimes lost his way. Wasn't he a bad kid? Just a young man trying to find direction in a world that felt bigger, faster, and more complicated than anything he had grown up with in Belle Plaine. David graduated high school with no clear plan. He bounced between odd jobs, helping neighbors with small tasks, and spending weekends fishing or hanging out with friends. Those who knew him said he was loyal, funny, and gentle. But underneath his easygoing personality, there was a restlessness, the sense that he was meant for something more, but didn't he yet know what that was? His sisters, Barb and Margaret, both noticed the changes as he got older. He still joked, still teased them, still loved pancakes drowning in syrup, but he seemed distracted, pulled in different directions by pressures he didn't talk about openly. Margaret remembered how he would sit outside on late summer nights staring at the sky, telling her he wished he could just start over somewhere new. He wasn't unhappy with his family. He just wanted a clean slate, a place where no one knew his past mistakes or early missteps. David had a few run-ins with trouble, nothing violent, nothing that hinted at the tragic fate that awaited him, but they were enough to convince him he needed change. Denver seemed like that fresh start, a city big enough to disappear into, full of opportunity, full of people who didn't know him as the sweet kid who once asked for a pet eagle for his birthday. When he told his family he was moving, the reactions were mixed. Donna was worried Denver was far, and she feared the world could be unkind to a kid as caring and trusting as David. His sisters encouraged him, hoping a new environment would give him confidence and direction. "Just promise to call," Barb had told him. He did. For a while his updates brought relief. He had made friends, he liked his co-workers, he liked the energy of the city, and he was proud, truly proud, of earning his own way. Working at a hotel as a room service waiter allowed David to use the natural friendliness that had always come so easily to him. Guests liked him. Co-workers respected him. His mom said that when he called, he actually sounded happy, hopeful, like he had finally started settling into the life he had long imagined. But despite the new city, new job, and new routine, Denver was not without danger. The early 1990s saw a surge of violent crime in the area. David had heard the stories, seen the reports on television, and even joked once that Minneapolis winters felt safer than Denver's summer nights. But no one imagined he would one day become part of the statistics he joked about. David was searching for stability, for growth, for a future brighter than anything he had before. Yet just months after arriving in Denver, that future would be violently stolen from him on a night that should have been ordinary, on a walk that should have led him safely home. By the time David Weierke reached young adulthood, he carried the weight of several difficult years on his shoulders. Belle Plaine had been a small, comfortable place to grow up, but as he entered his 20s, he began to feel confined by its limits. The same streets he played on as a child no longer felt like home. Instead, they reminded him of the mistakes he had made and the challenges he was trying to move past. His sisters later said that David wanted something bigger, something different, and most of all, a clean slate. That desire led him westward, all the way to Denver, Colorado. The city was growing fast, full of new faces, new opportunities, and a vibrant nightlife. To David, Denver represented movement. It represented possibility. It represented the chance to rebuild himself into someone stronger, more stable, and more independent. He left Minnesota with optimism, carrying nothing more than a suitcase, a few photos from home, and an unshakable belief that he was finally taking the right step. When David arrived, he settled into a modest apartment not far from downtown. His first job came quickly working as a room service waiter for a local hotel. The position wasn't glamorous, but it was reliable, and David made the most of it. His coworkers described him as cheerful, polite, and eager to help. He was the kind of employee who never complained about long shifts. Instead, he found comfort in being useful, in staying busy, in knowing that every day he showed up was a day he was building something for himself. But what truly helped David adjust to his new life was the hospitality environment itself. He liked meeting people, he liked conversation, he liked the small human moments that came with delivering meals, taking requests, or helping new guests navigate the hotel. His natural friendliness fit the job perfectly, and for the first time in a long time, David felt like things might actually be turning around for him. Still, adjusting to the big city wasn't easy. Denver in the early 90s had a shifting culture, especially in its downtown nightlife districts. The same bars and clubs that attracted young people like David also carried riskless late-night violence. Unpredictable crowds and sometimes the wrong people in the wrong place at the wrong time. But like many in their early 20s, David saw the nightlife as a way to unwind after work, to meet people, and to feel connected in a city where he had no family. When David called home, he told his mom and sisters that he missed them, but he always added that Denver was good for him. He was working, he had friends, he was hopeful again. His mother later shared that she could hear something in his voice, something she hadn't heard in years. He sounded lighter. He sounded more confident. He sounded like a young man rebuilding his future with each passing day. But even in moments of hope, life can shift without warning. The fresh start he had fought so hard to create was fragile, and no one, not even David himself, could have predicted how close danger truly was. The investigation into David Weierke's murder began immediately, but from the start, detectives faced challenges that would haunt the case for decades. Denver police arrived on Larimer Street within minutes of the 911 call, finding David unconscious on the cold pavement with a single stab wound to the chest. The area was chaotic, a mix of late-night bar traffic, homeless residents, and industrial warehouses still active at that hour. Officers quickly secured the scene, but the environment made the preservation of evidence difficult. Witnesses provided limited descriptions. Most said they saw a confrontation but could not identify the attackers clearly. It was dark, the streetlights were dim, and the altercation happened fast. According to one witness, the larger man swung his arm like he was throwing a punch before David collapsed. Another described the two suspects as walking away calmly like nothing had happened. None of these initial witnesses could provide a full name or even an accurate physical description. The only consistent detail was that one suspect was noticeably bigger than the other. Investigators canvassed the area, stopping people outside bars, late-night restaurants, and abandoned buildings. But Larimer Street in 1993 was not the redeveloped downtown Denver people know today. At that time, it was a rough corridor filled with crime, drugs, and transient foot traffic. Many people who might have seen something simply refused to talk. Others admitted they were too intoxicated to recall the details. The combination of fear, distrust of police, and impaired witnesses created a wall of silence. Detectives worked with the limited evidence available. They collected clothing fibers, footprints, and a partial shoe impression near the scene. But none of it was enough to positively link anyone to David's murder. The biggest clue, the knife, was never recovered. Without the weapon, the forensic evidence remained incomplete. In the following days, police checked local hospitals, assuming one of the suspects might have been injured in the struggle. No matches came up. They interviewed known offenders in the area. Still, nobody had information that moved the case forward. The trail was cooling faster than anyone expected. Even more painful for David's family was the lack of motive. Robbery didn't appear to be the reason. David still had his wallet and money on him. Detectives considered whether it was a random encounter, a drunken argument, or a case of mistaken identity. But without solid leads, each possibility was just speculation. The year 1993 was labeled the Summer of Violence. In Denver, for a reason, detectives were overwhelmed with homicides. Cases piled up quickly, stretching resources thin. David's murder became one of many unsolved cases in a city struggling to contain rising crime. As new incidents occurred, the investigation into David's death faded into the background. For his mother and sisters, this was unthinkable. They believed someone knew the truth, someone who saw the attackers clearly, someone who heard something, someone who could bring peace to the family. But each passing day made justice for David feel more distant. His life had been cut short just as he was rebuilding his future, and now his case was slipping through the cracks of a violent city drowning in crime. 3 decades have passed since the night David Weierke collapsed on the cold pavement of Larimer Street, yet the wound of his death has never even begun to heal. For the Weierke family, time did not soften grief. If anything, it sharpened it. The memory of David's laugh, his bright curiosity, and the sweetness that defined his character has stayed frozen in their minds, while the world kept moving forward without him. For David's mother, Donna, the loss reshaped everything. She often sits quietly in her living room, staring at the handmade clock David crafted for her when he was young. It has ticked for over 30 years, and every movement of the second hand is a reminder of the time her son never had. She has called it her living memory, the object that somehow holds a piece of him. Some days she touches it and smiles. Other days she breaks down, wishing she could turn back time to the moment he walked out that night in Denver. His sisters Barb and Margaret have spoken openly about the sadness that follows them like a shadow. Margaret still recalls the exact sound of her mother's scream when the police delivered the news. "It wasn't just grief," she said. "It was a sound that told me our lives had just split into a before and after." Barb often describes the holidays as a quiet reminder of the person who should still be here. Family dinners feel incomplete. Birthdays are a mix of joy and guilt. Every milestone achieved by their children reminds them that David never had the chance to build a life, start a family, or simply grow older. The most painful part, his family says, is the lack of answers. David's murder remains unsolved, and the two individuals who walked away after the stabbing have never been fully identified. The case faded into the background during a violent chapter in Denver's history, the 1993 Summer of Violence, a period so overwhelmed by crime that many cases received only a fraction of the attention they deserved. For families like the Weierkes, that meant justice slipped through cracks that should have never existed. Over the years, Margaret and Barb have learned to live in a state they describe as permanent waiting, waiting for a phone call, waiting for a tip, waiting for anyone to come forward. They have repeatedly spoken with detectives, hoping for new leads, but progress has been painfully slow. The case file sits in cold storage, filled with witness statements, old crime scene photos, and the unanswered question that haunts them the most: why? Yet despite the agony, the Weierke family has refused to let his case fade away. They have worked with organizations like Project Cold Case, shared David's story publicly, and continued urging the community to speak up. Someone knows something, Margaret insists. Someone saw more than they admitted. Someone remembers details they think are too small to matter. But they matter to us, to David, and to justice. David's story is a stark reminder of how quickly tragedy can strike, but also how deeply the love for one person can echo through time. His family's pain is real, their hope is fragile, but their determination remains unshaken. They believe with everything in them that one day, someone will come forward. One day, a missing piece will fall into place. One day, justice will finally knock on their door. Until then, they keep David alive in every memory, every story, and every moment they remind the world that he mattered. Because he did, and still does. Even after all these years, David's family still wakes up wishing things had ended differently. A mother who never stops grieving. Sisters who still feel robbed of a lifetime with their brother. Someone out there knows the truth. And David deserves justice. If you have any information, please contact Denver Crime Stoppers. If you want more cases like this, more stories that deserve to be heard, please support the channel. Like, share, and subscribe to help keep these victims' memories alive.